And welcome back in to another new episode of Tribal Council Chat. My name is Bruce Heller,
Cornell?
and let's dive in. So we have a really fun episode planned this week.
Yeah, we're back in off-season mode, so we've got pretty much 2 months planned. Up until we'll probably release in about 6 weeks for 46. But before that, what we're gonna do is tonight's gonna be an episode on our favorite survivor locations over the years. But before we jump into that, little thing that came up is we've seen a lot of people for the new year doing this in and out game on Instagram. So I suggested to Bruce, why don't we play a survivor version of that for to start off for our first segment of the whole year. So Bruce, what are your 3 things that we decided to settle on 3 for each in the interest of time, but what are your 3 things that you would like to see either come in or stay in to Survivor moving from 45 into the second half of the 40s?
Yeah, so the three I had were the auction, which finally came back in 45 and was brilliant. I'd love to see them bring the loved ones visit back. Haven't seen that since Winners at War. And I love that we've been bringing back classic challenges, such as Last Gasp or the Dexterity one we saw in 45, and a few others that we hadn't seen for a while before recently.
Yeah, those are great. Really like those suggestions. One of them will be similar on my list. Um, what have been say your favorite from either anyone that we've seen? What's probably your favorite moment to come from any of those that we got recently?
Um, I mean, just having the auction back in general was fantastic. I'm glad they took um advantages out of it. I like the concept of the person with the most money left ends up losing their vote, but I feel like it resulted in not bidding wars, but just people throwing all their money at one thing. So that kind of needs to be tweaked a little bit. But overall, I'm glad it's back. I'd love to see the loved ones come back next.
Nice. So for mine, I to touch on one that you already touched on, what I put is family connections on my list. I'm in that I really liked, for example, the letters from home that we got in the last season. I liked how early on we got like to see at a reward get some quick images of people's connections. Whether they bring a loved one's visit back or not, I would love to see one. At the same time, if season 40 was the end, I mean, you'll never have a better one than that one.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of fall. But yeah, I agree with you. If they do decide to bring it back, I would love that. The other two that I commented on, one that I would like to see stay in that we got in 45 is a tribe swap.
Oh, yeah, for
Um,
sure. Totally
that
agree.
what really helped the game be played a bit more organically and not just staying the same the way it always from day the first vote until the merge. And then the last one, I'm sure to no surprise to you that I'm going to bring this up, was that updated format. That's perfect mix of the open discussion and individual questions, with production kind of taking its hand off the wheel a bit and letting the players talk about what really they wanted to talk about. And at the end of the day, under this format, I think I can sit there as a man and say, you have to really care about who you vote off the jury and how you vote them off, because they're going to make decisions at final based on their own lived experiences in the game and not some formula that's being given to them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I liked this version of Final Tribal Council pretty well, and it was an entertaining one. So hopefully that stays. What are your
I'm
three
even
things?
tempted.
Go
I'm
ahead.
even tempted to say that I like this format for Final Tribal Council better than either of the two that are previously used.
Yeah, maybe. I definitely like it better than the one that started at Game Changers. I don't know if I like it
Yeah.
better than the original one or not, but
Mm.
so what are your three things you'd like to see go out
One
and
thing I'd
not
like
come
to
back?
see go out. How can I start this off without saying one word? Quitters.
Yep, that was one of mine.
Um, the next thing I'd like to see go out, I put three tribes. I just like at this point, I think the players almost assume I'm going into a three tribes of six. And if
Yeah,
that was a little less predictable, sometimes the tribes could be bigger. Sometimes we could even hit something like we did in Panama or um, Cook Islands, where they're even smaller. It would really put the players back on their toes on day one to not kind of feel that there's a set routine that they've seen every season since 41.
yeah, for sure. I totally
And then
agree.
and then the final out that I put was a newbie season every time. And I think I'm pretty sure at this point it's definitely confirmed we'll get one in 46, probably in 47. Not that I have had any problem with casting. I think casting's been very good. But when we look at other networks, MTV and Peacock are taking some of the best Survivor players of all time to other shows.
Yeah,
And while that's fine because odds are, like when we look at the traders coming up this week, Parvati and Sandra were never going to play Survivor again. No problem.
yeah.
Um, Michelle and Jay are doing amazing on the challenge. No problem. That's also a perfect fit for them. But I would be worried a bit if I was casting, if, say, somebody like D ends up on the challenge 40.
I think we're gonna get a returnee season at the latest at 50 for sure.
Yeah.
I don't see them doing an all newbie season for a landmark number like 50. So,
Just more thinking along the lines of your top talent might end up looking elsewhere if they don't think they have a chance to play again.
yeah, for sure.
What are
I
yours?
also don't want to see it become like the challenge where it's the same people over and over again every season, though.
That's also true.
I had quitters as one of them. One that I had that you didn't was this whole like risking slash losing your vote every episode thing. And like, I really don't mind the concept of it. I'm not like, I know a lot of fans get upset with production and with Probst for messing with people's votes too often. I just don't think we need to do it every single episode. It gets kind of
I
monotonous to have somebody without a vote every tribal council.
really agree with you because, and it's off. Also, it's almost like if it's overused, it becomes too predictable. Where you can almost now go into a merge vote, going, okay, so there's 9 votes here, not 11.
But there's yeah, and you there's just too many ways to lose it. There's
Yes. It was
Advantage
great
Island, there's
when one person lost a vote, and then everybody was like, "Why is Jeff saying the tribe has spoken? There's still a vote left." No, there's not. That was amazing.
yeah, it just between Shipwheel Island and the Beware advantages and just there's too many ways that people are losing their votes and it's every single episode and just space it out a little bit. So, moving along, before we get into counting down our favorite locations, another great idea you had was three locations we would have liked to have seen before the Fiji contract happened, and we are stuck there for eternity, which I don't mind, but is also not as exciting as different locations.
So, do you want me to get started with my number three?
Yeah,
My number three for this was something I've heard some rumors about that almost happened during COVID when Fiji was entirely shut down and one country in the world was still open to tourists. I mean, I went there 4 times within 2020 and 2021, and that would be Survivor Mexico, just south of the border.
nice. That'd be fun.
I think Mexico's a great culture, great history, so much to do for people to be visiting there that they could display in rewards, and amazing people, and like the beaches that are uninhabited on, say, the west east side of Cozumel or south of Tulum would be a great location for the show.
Yeah. So my number three is Morocco, just because I feel like it'd be really cool visually. It's be more of a desert and less of a beach. Like we've had a few seasons that weren't beaches, even though most of them are. So, and you could do a really cool reward like they used to do rewards taking people to a local area or a local town.
Amazing.
So Morocco was my third one.
Yeah, that's definitely somewhere on the top of my list of places I need to visit. All right, so going to my second, um, this was a location that I was always surprised they never used. I'm not sure if there was anything that could have been a barrier or whatnot back in the day, but that is the largest island in Africa, Madagascar.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Some amazing wildlife there, dense jungles, great beaches, and also the African culture that we would see in some others that we've seen in some other seasons that I really feel before the Fiji contract started, Survivor kind of missed out on not doing more in Africa with only 2 seasons.
Yeah. And see, I hear Madagascar and my mind goes to the movie Madagascar, but such a good pick. I wouldn't, that'd be such a cool visual season. Probably similar
Yeah,
to Gabon in that you see wildlife constantly would be my guess.
exactly. I mean, if we could get a cast similar to Gabon,
Yeah, we still need to do that Gabon episode we've been talking
yeah,
about since we
this
started the
off
show.
season, I'm sure.
Yeah. My number two is kind of an off the wall idea, and it's a cold weather location. I don't really have a specific one,
I
but
assume my country would be a good start for that.
yeah, Canada would be a good one. Siberia came to my mind, but I feel like that might be a little too extreme with the cold. But we're always in,
Too.
we're always in these warm tropical locations. A cold weather one where they're all bundled up wearing coats might be something different. Might be something fun. I don't know.
Interesting. Not sure as someone who lives through it what I would think about it and how much they could do, but it's definitely an idea that I've seen a lot and that I like you bringing into this.
Yeah,
And then my one is in a region of the world they never used. It's not the location that was almost used. It's essentially a neighboring country with the very small piece of the state of Israel in between. But as you may have heard, Survivor Marquesas was almost in the Kingdom of Jordan,
interesting.
um, and and that was impacted by 9/11.
Yeah.
So what I said was not the sites that they talked about in Jordan, but I would love to see for my number one the banks of the River Nile, Egypt.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I love learning about like ancient Egypt and stuff like that.
It's the number one place on my travel bucket list for many years now.
Me too. My number one is a little bit closer to home, and that is Hawaii. I feel like that'd be really cool. Both
Yeah, that
the
would be
water would be beautiful, and also just the plants and stuff that you'd see would be really cool.
amazing marine life too.
Assuming no volcanoes go off or anything, but cross that bridge if you get there.
That is true. Okay, that was fun. So let's get into the main part of the show, which is our 5 favorite locations that they have used. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
I'll go. So my number five is kind of like I mentioned with what my Morocco idea, just that it's something different other than a tropical beach location. My number five is Tocantins. Such a
Okay.
like just a fun location, fun to look at, different than the typical beach we're used to seeing.
Really different. I think Tocantins was the one season that I was just like, where is this? Because I don't picture that as Brazil.
And the Exile Island just being a giant like sand dune, like what I imagine my Morocco season would be actually.
Exactly. It was so neat to think like Tocantins and Amazon were in the same country.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy to think about. That thought never occurred to me. And also with Token Chains, we get, I mean, Coach's trip to exile is like the most coachy scene we ever see from him. So it's a little much, but just visually seeing him and his staff walking throughout the desert is kind of cool.
Was so it is so bizarre. Um,
It's too
I
much coach.
always wonder, maybe it's my theory, maybe other people have seen this too, but did they edit that episode almost making Coach out to be an allegory of the death of Jesus?
I don't know. That his
It's
trip to
like
exile
I'm not
is
watching, I just picture that I'm watching the Passion of the Christ or something before Coach gets voted off.
his trip to exile and the challenge right afterwards where he thinks he broke his back or whatever is the most coach scene in any of his 3 seasons.
Oh,
And we
absolutely.
see a lot of coach every time he's on a season, but that episode is just peak him. It's simultaneously hilarious and super annoying all at one time.
So to go off of what you just said, you went with something totally different for your number five.
Yeah,
For my number five, I'm doing essentially the complete opposite. And this is where I ranked the Mamakirin Islands in Fiji.
nice.
It's a location we see a lot of, obviously, that we're going to continue to see a lot of as long as Survivor is on a televisions. I know
Yeah.
some people aren't the biggest fans. I'm kind of mixed on this in that it was great to see them move around. Also, this is a location that I do feel kind of has everything for the show.
Yeah, and they've set up roots there now, and they've got a good deal going with the Fijian government. So like it's
Yeah.
a little bit boring, but they're not going anywhere, and I don't hate it. So
Yeah.
that's a really good one. And we've been there since what, 33 now? So yeah, it's a good spot. Okay, so my number four, and this is partially just because of how much they worked the culture into the season, like through like rewards and through they did the storytelling challenge on this season, and even with the intro, and that is Cambodia, specifically in 31 Second Chances.
Let's see. That location is definitely on my list at some point. Um, but yeah, I really like that. I may have called it something else, but
I just went
um,
off of the season name.
yeah. Where did you? I definitely say that you're onto something here. I absolutely love the idea. They had so many great rewards in Cambodia too,
Yeah,
like
the temple visit.
season 31 being able to visit the Angkor Wat temples, which is one of the most sacred sites for both Hindus and Buddhists anywhere in the world. That was amazing.
Yeah, so cool. And then you get the nighttime challenge with the storytelling that kind of tells a little bit about the area also that they have to remember the facts from.
Challenges were great.
Yeah. You also have the
Being
great
in
moment where Fishback is reading an option and he goes to grab something and Abby grabs it and leaves, and we learn that Fishback faked her out and he grabs the correct answer and she later has to go back.
that was I remember that that was hilarious.
So what is your number four?
Number four here. I talked a bit about this in Mexico. It's the closest season to you and I in Canada and the United States, and that is Guatemala.
Yeah, that was a really cool one. That slipped my mind a little bit, but
Guatemala would be tough to play in because of the wildlife in your water source, and it was just so hot. But I mean, being able to live not just in a camp, but in the national park of the two tribes was Yashad and Nakum. And where they set that season was in Yashad Nakum National Park, which is a authentic Mayan village historical site.
well,
If
yeah,
you visit there today, you can still walk up the steps and see the temples where tribal was. Those were real Mayan temples, not a set.
yeah,
And it had to make my list for that reason that it was the history of Guatemala was featured in the season, not just in acting. Or not acting, but in design, I mean.
And one of the camps was even at a pyramid. The camp that the 11-mile hike that the first tribe to finish got that camp was really cool. Also, shout out to Guatemala for the waters being so insane that one of the rewards was a swimming pool gets built at your camp with a pool deck because you can't swim in the water. So,
It's fun.
cool reward though.
And it made a great episode for Denny's birthday.
Oh yeah, for sure. When the other tribe came over,
So
that
what's your number 3?
my number 3 is another one that's kind of I like it because I love this season. I want to say it's my number 6 favorite season out of all of them. And it's another location that's just something different than the tropical beach we always see, and that is Australian Outback, which is kind of a beach, but you're at a river or a pond or whatever it was. You're not right by the ocean. And we later learned that they built their merge camp in a dry creek bed when a flash flood comes and basically destroys everything and they have to start over. So, also a 42-day season for some reason. So,
I don't know why that happened, but I
me
mean,
neither.
we now have 26-day seasons, so it can be pretty much any time you want.
Yeah, I love that season. I love that location. The flash flood
Oh,
episode is so
that was
good.
a great location. I'm not sure why it maybe didn't make my list, but I mean, everything happened. You had the floods, you had the forest fires, you had the crocodiles and snakes, you had everything.
I forgot about the forest fires. A certain somebody caught a pig at some point, I'm pretty sure, didn't he?
We can't mention him, obviously, but that he did.
Well, yeah. The flood episode is still just wild that they
If
didn't
we want to
realize.
talk about catching wildlife, we can talk about Sandra. If we ever get to end up on 34.
Oh yeah, the goat that they have to convince her not to kill because it has a kid.
So my 3 goes back to year 4, and you mentioned Cambodia. This is where I'm going to mention Koh Rong,
Yeah,
known as the Maldives of Southeast Asia. Absolutely beautiful island. You guys, if you're gonna be listening to us, hopefully, might end up with a bit of a surprise later this year in regards to this location. Um, but a lot happened. You had all the medevacs, which I'm sure the players hated, but it made for some good TV to show that this is real. The
yeah,
heat, the sea life. Again, kind of like Cambodia, you had some amazing rewards, like seeing Michelle and Jason at the elephant sanctuary was amazing in this. Um, and then it's just one of the most beautiful islands in that part of the world. So yes, it's an island beach season, but that Cambodia is such a great country.
yeah. And both 31 and 32 are just so cool scenically. And with 31, they work it into the fabric of the season very well, which leads me to my number 2, which is another season that I feel like they work the location into the challenges and the rewards and just the the DNA of the season a lot. My favorite season, it's on my phone case here. Survivor China comes in at my number 2, which is kind of a beachy season, but also kind of a different season that's not a tropical beach at the same time.
No, that was a great one. I love the idea of them starting the season in Shanghai.
Yeah,
And essentially, like, it's probably the one season that we don't have that traditional marooning, but you see the cast all face to face in a city that I think is like 24 million people,
yeah,
only to take a train out to their location. I may be wrong on this, but I've done some research before onto exactly where the season took place. And somewhere I've seen that at either in the filming site or very close to it, because as I'm sure we've all heard how quickly China is just ever expanding. The filming site of this season may be a city with millions of people right now.
yeah. I think so.
I'm pretty sure where I've researched that it's supposed to be is now a city on Google Maps.
Yeah. Just
Just blows my mind.
a cool location though. It was obviously rainy and muddy the whole time they were there, it seemed like. And who was it? Ashley ends up getting heels, which, as much as we've heard production chooses the clothing they wear, what a choice by production there to send someone out to a muddy camp wearing heels. But just a great location. They worked the location into the season really well. Each tribe had a copy of the Art of War.
It was great.
Just an
And I
awesome.
love that too, that they, like you say, that they worked it in. The Art of War was there. They brought the Buddhist rituals in right off the bat. They went to the Great Wall. They went to um the home of Kung Fu. It
Yeah,
was done so well by production.
very well done. So what was your number two?
Two, are you ready for it?
Yep.
I don't think I've ever said this before on one of our rankings lists, but our top ranking for me is Thailand.
Yeah,
I
it's a cool
the only
location.
week we can put Thailand on a list, the best of anything.
Yeah,
To make my list here, I visited there. I visited the area that the season took place, seeing like all the rocks coming right out of the ocean is just amazing. All the Thai culture and Buddhist culture that was worked into the season
yeah.
was great. And Thailand is, in my mind, some of the just, especially southern Thailand, where this was, is some of the most unique, pristine places in the whole world. And that's why we've seen it not only on season 5, but it's been used in some international seasons of Survivor, specifically some of the European ones. It's been used like 2 or 3 times for the challenge. It's just one of the best places in the world aesthetically.
Yeah, I dog on that season a lot, but the location is really cool. There's some really great visual shots. It's a cool location for a season. I just wish the season itself was a little bit better, but
Yeah. But like doing rites of passage inside of one of the flooded out caves
yeah,
and then getting to the end and competing in the dark in your final immunity challenge was amazing.
yeah, very cool. So leading into
But we
mine,
haven't mentioned one season that I thought that's my number one, isn't on your list yet.
it's probably
Let's
gonna.
see if we have the same number one.
I would put a lot of money on betting that we do. So based on our texting each other earlier, my number one. You mentioned how difficult of a season Ko Wrong was. This is the one season I would argue was tougher environmentally and physically. It's another season that's just kind of the location is different than what we're used to, and I like highlighting those. We're in the middle
We have
of
the same season.
yeah, in the middle of the savannah. One night pre-merge, one of the tribes even could hear lions walking around outside of their camp. Survivor Africa comes in at my number
Absolutely.
one.
No question. Same for me. Like you said, the Lions was great. Just how much wildlife you could really see on that season was just fascinating, whether it be the lions, the giraffes, and they worked that the elephants, and they worked that in so well. Seeing
Yeah.
Tom and Lex on that balloon ride was the best of all
The water situation was pretty rough, but
time. But what do you think about that reward specifically?
that was a really cool reward. I enjoyed watching that.
Thing like another reward featuring Lex, but this time with Ethan. Seeing Ethan playing football, as I'll call it, with Twin,
Yeah,
that was a great scene, especially him professional in the U.S. at the time.
yeah. And
Um,
I mentioned the lions. Imagine that. Like imagine it being at nighttime. And like the camp is I don't know what it's called. The camp is inside that circle thing that the lions won't come inside. But still imagine hearing these lions like walking around and they're probably right outside of that. Like that's got to
yeah,
be terrifying.
it has to be. Um, No question. I'm somebody who's always wanted to do a tenting safari in Botswana as a life goal.
Yeah,
So maybe someday I'll get to experience that, but
I want to do a
it
shark
would be
cage
cool.
sometime. That'd be
I would
fun.
do that actually. Call me crazy.
No,
So South
people call me
Africa, Cape
crazy when
Town
I say
area.
it, but and also the cool thing with Africa was one of the challenges they brought local tribes in and they did something that like the tribes do when drinking the blood and
I was just gonna say that in both that and in the reward that Ethan and Lex went to in the village, they didn't shy away from some of the parts of Africa that the American audience might find a bit offensive at the expense of not showing us the real culture of Kenya. And I thought it was beautiful to see.
oh yeah, it was great. Such a cool season, cool location, a pretty fun cast, honestly.
Yeah. Even like when you get, like I was saying about Ethan and Lex's reward, when you get that and they sell the goats in order to get money to buy things in the market, and within 5 seconds, those goats have gone to the slaughterhouse. Like that was
Oh
funny.
yeah, for sure. And just the giant crowds that start following them as they're walking through the village.
Yeah.
And like people that have been following our show's Instagram page and stories know I've been started rewatching All Stars recently. And as much as Lex annoys me at the merge in All Stars, and I stand by, I don't feel bad for him in All Stars, and I don't think I ever will. But I liked him in his first season. I liked him in Africa. Africa,
Um,
great location,
so
great.
did I. So did I, with the one exception of that his incident of not being able to take a vote in a game about voting people out.
Yeah, well, that's
I
just
still feel that Kelly was one of the most robbed old schoolers of not getting a second chance.
yeah. And the fact that that vote ended up coming from T Bird, who's just one of the nicest people that everyone loves, is so funny to me.
Yeah.
So random.
Okay, so do you want to get into an ally blindside first boot while we have 7 minutes?
Sure. So I will go with winners from three of my five locations. From Survivor China, because it's my favorite season, I will go with Todd Herzog. From Australian Outback, Tina Wesson. And because I don't think I've chosen this person before, from Token Chains, JT Thomas.
Interesting. Um, I will ally with Todd. I think
Love
he'd
him.
be a great alliance member, someone that I think I'd have some things in common with, and he really knows this game, which is
Oh, yeah.
excellent. Um, it's interesting now because unlike when I do it with you, I can't first boot a winner because there's three of them.
Uh huh.
I
Exactly.
am going to blindside JT because he's shown that he can be blindsided.
The thing is, you don't know which JT you're getting. Are you getting Token Chains JT or Heroes versus Villains in After JT, where he's just kind of a bonehead? But he was great his first season.
Oh, he was. And that leaves me to blindside or to first boot Tina, which I mean, probably no surprise there. It's a good decision, seeing that she was not only a first boot before, but she also was probably very close to winning this game twice. She could have easily been the first two-time winner and not
Yeah.
Sandra back in Blood versus Water. So that makes me
Well,
confident to make that decision.
she would have been the second two-time winner. Sandra still would have won Heroes versus Villains already.
Yes. I'm mixing up the season that Sandra won in my head, but you're correct. She could have easily won the game a second time.
Here's the thing. I love Tina. I think she's probably in my top 10 favorite winners. If she had won Blood versus Water, would she have gotten the same like blowback that Underwood has gotten as a winner that got voted out on their season?
I don't think so, but I don't think it has so much to do with her versus Underwood. I think it has to do with Redemption Island versus Edge of Extinction.
I don't think she would have gotten the same blowback, but I think it's because we've already seen her twice, and she's already become a fan favorite, whereas Underwood did it as a newbie. So Tina kind of already had a little bit built up had she won that season.
All right. So I am going to go. We just did winners. I'm gonna go with villains from 3 of my locations
Okay.
for you. So your options are Kyle Jason from Korong, Brian Heidig from Thailand, and Lex Vandenberg from Africa.
Okay, so Heidig's gone first. I mean, he's the only winner here, so I would have anyway, but he just doesn't seem like someone I'd be able to work well with very easily. And so I think I'll align with Lex because if like he's proven well, I was gonna say he'll be loyal if you're loyal, but Ethan and Colby on All Stars, so I don't know, but I think I could see myself working with him easier than Kyle Jason. So I'll blindside Jason and reluctantly align with Lex, but if it's Africa Lex, yes. If it's All Stars Lex, I'm kind of don't feel great about that. But oh well.
I think I am for the same reasons as you, plus quite a bit more. Gonna first boot Brian. That's easy.
Yeah. There's a lot
And
of
then
reasons.
I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm going to ally with Jason. I think up until the point that Michelle voted off her closest ally, Julia was playing Jason and Scott perfectly to win that game. And really, I think he'd be someone good to sit next to at the end. Lex is someone that I don't know. He could have won Africa if he got to the final two,
Yeah,
whereas Jason was never winning Koga.
true. Well, this was a really fun episode, man.
Yeah, it was. Any last thoughts before we gotta go?
Um, like and subscribe on YouTube, follow on Instagram and Facebook. Stay tuned because we're gonna have a really cool episode next week, hopefully.
We'll make an announcement about it once everything's confirmed. But
Yeah, just teasing it a little bit now so they get excited.
anyway, thanks so much. Great to do this. Grab your torches and head back to camp.
Bye, guys.